We are live. Welcome to PhD with Women on IT, Hack the Future. My name is Beata, and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by Kelly Hoey. Today's title of discussion will be Building the Success Networks You Need. PhD episode 15 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my modus operandi, and empathy is critical when you are building the success networks you need. As I mentioned, Kelly Hoey is today's guest. She is a writer, investor, connector, and networking expert lauded everywhere from Forbes, one of 5 women changing the world of entrepreneurship, to Fast Company, 25 smartest women on Twitter. A columnist for Income, she's appeared on CNBC's Power Pitch, and her clients include the New York Coca-Cola, PBS, L'Oreal, Capital One, and Duff. Kelly, I could go on with your bio, but I think it is lovely to see you, and I would like to focus on the topic of today's discussion. Where in the world are you today, Kelly?
I'm in beautiful New York City. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody who's watching this from New York City.
Fantastic to see you, and fantastic to see some of our audience. It is lovely to see some people joining us live, and I just would like to remind you that today's session is all about networking and community building. And as always, during our Positivity Hack delivered, community is at the heart of our organization, and we want you to succeed. And in order to succeed, you need to ask us questions or give us just a certificate of appreciation, whether it's a like, a heart, better still, sharing it with your own network. Any sign that you are alive and you're finding our session useful. Appreciate our esteemed guest, acknowledge our work. You owe it to our daughters, our sons, all the community of women on IT that hack the future. Kelly, so let's start with a basic question. Why do you need a network? What are the benefits and what is the purpose of building a network?
I think when you unearth what you do in life, from landing a job, finding a house, I want to say your health, your fulfillment, you'll see behind it there is a network that has connected you to the answer, the resource, the tool, the opportunity that you're seeking. So the things you've done already in life and the things you will achieve in life, we get there with the help of other people. So it is not, and as I sort of mentioned when I said health, there's a lot of social science research that shows that networks are good for our mental health, our physical health, as much as they may be good for, adding some great jobs and experiences and opportunities to our resumes or CVs.
Fantastic. I'm an avid networker, and we just chatted about the fact that I came ready prepared. I got my garment on. I squeezed myself into that dress that I bought just before the pandemic. I was in London, crazy shopping and thinking, I'm going to impress the Malta Business Network, where I'm the director of. And, I've got to wear it today. I'm ready to network. So I'm going to ask you a critical question that it's on and on. Everybody is asking me how to network during pandemic.
Well, networking during a pandemic, in some ways, I don't think it's any different than pre-pandemic. So many people think when they need to get out and network, they think they need to, rush out and meet strangers and attend meetups and exchange business cards, or endlessly post on, say, social media, and tag people they don't know, or ask everybody when they're on a Zoom event or a conference or a webinar, put in the chat their LinkedIn profile and think everyone, hey, connect with me on LinkedIn. That believing somehow that is useful or worthwhile networking. I believe networking should start with who you already know. I believe it is a consistent and continual activity because the foundation of networking is trust. And whether you are building your network using technology or building your network by in real life, in-person interactions, you need to build trust, and trust is something that is built or reinforced by continual interactions. So on the basis of that, how do you network in a pandemic? You show up for your network every single day. You network consistently. You watch and you listen and learn to see where are the ways you can help your network. Can you give them a resource? Can you pass along some information? Can you give them a tip? Can you cheer them on? Can you share this video and this conversation? It might help somebody else out. That is all part of networking. And that's how you network in a pandemic. You work that muscle. You look at digital tools like you would, I want to say the physical rooms that we would network if we could, get out in the world more fully than we can right now. Context matters. I could go on and on and on this one, but showing up for your network every day, realizing you have a network and your network has networks, and using digital tools to listen and learn and to find the communities and the contacts that you're seeking.
Oh my goodness, I got to make it a point of just taking quotations, and it's so full of quotations. Your network has networks. It's so powerful, and especially when I think about millennials, and you and I, we've been mentoring startups, and I can't stop but think about how impatient people are nowadays. They want instant gratification, instant connection. And as you say, it takes time. So how did you start building your network? Did you always have a successful strategy?
No, I had some unsuccessful strategies, or, fell into some traps that, in my book and in my talks, that I try and help other people navigate so that they get the benefit of my hindsight and they get the benefit of what I do today, and they don't make the mistakes that I made. So the first thing that really shaped how I think about networking was way back in 1991, when I was a new grad out of law school, and I realized in the profession I was in, which as an attorney, that there was a fundamental tension between two things I needed to do to be successful. I needed to be a really good lawyer, which meant I needed to do a lot of work and bill a lot of hours and get a lot of experience. Those are activities that would keep me literally chained to my desk. But I also realized I needed to build relationships. So how do you do that? How do you build relationships when you're stuck at your desk? Well, you can have a better email signature line. You can have a better voicemail message. You can send a better voicemail. You can ask a client or a customer how they are before you jump into, the business deals or the pitch. Realizing these other interactions were equally valuable as part of that trust building we talked about earlier was a real eye-opener, and realizing that every day and every week I had the chance to further relationships by paying attention, and using these tools I had at hand rather than bemoaning the fact that I couldn't get out and network, enabled me to build relationships that moved my career forward. So there was sort of lesson number one. Lesson number two in building a successful network was kind of where I made the mistake and realized, like, oops, I fell into the trap of building a very strong, very powerful network, but it was a very limited network because it was a lot of lawyers and professionals and bankers in a very limited practice of law. And it was a network that had my back, gave me tremendous support, could refer me to opportunities, but mostly in this very narrow world. And it didn't allow me to see a bigger vision of what my career could be. And the process of building a network to expand my career horizons, that was kind of lesson number two, that you need to ensure that your network has the full range of diversity in it so that you don't end up in an echo chamber or restricting your possibilities because you're only talking to and only engaging with the same type of industry professionals all the time. So those are kind of two really big lessons on networking. The third one is when you have the opportunity to be involved in networks, don't just sit back, all right? I would love to say, here's how you have all your success and opportunity in life presented to you on a silver platter. I am still waiting for the opportunities to be presented to me on a silver platter. You need to make yourself visible. So that's the third part in terms of the importance of networks. I was thinking about how are you visible? How are you contributing? How are you adding value to the network around the skills and the talents you want to be known for so that more of those good things come through the network to you?
Fantastic. Well, Akami, I can't stop but think about all these people who harass me. Bless you. That's true. All these people who harass me on LinkedIn, asking me to pick my brain or talk about the exciting product they have, and I actually never met them. The sole reason they wanted to connect with me was to sell. So what would be the message from you to these people? How can they interact before they just do hard sell on you?
And I was just laughing when you said, bless you. No, it was my other laptop falling on the ground because funny, with all the things we did for preparing for today, did I forget to plug in my computer? Yes, I did. And it was just telling me that we were going to run out of power. And I'm like, this is not good. Not in the middle of this fabulous conversation. We are not losing battery life. Thank you very much. But we're all reconnected now. So there we go. Listen, this is where networking gets a bad name. And I think this is where sales gets a bad name because the best salespeople know that selling is relationship building. Reaching out to people with a template and hoping that something sticks, not a good plan when you're networking, and you're networking to hopefully build a client pipeline, a sales pipeline, and get someone to be in your, new customer. You need to understand how what you have solves somebody else's problem, and you don't need to assume. Figure out what the other person's problem is, and then tell them in a personalized, customized outreach how you know a particular problem they have and why you're the person who can solve it. There is a fabulous case study in my book, Build Your Dream Network, which is the cold emailing that Jessica Peltz-Zatulov did when she graduated from her undergraduate at the Kelley School of Business out in Indiana. And she wanted to get a job in New York. She was looking for jobs on Madison Avenue. It was shortly, the years just after 9/11. Job market sucked. It was really hard. She landed multiple job interviews. Why? Because she read the industry magazines, publications. She knew what was going on in the industry. She understood the industry. She understood when opportunities for hiring decisions were made. So she watched for those signals. She then figured out who the decision maker was, and she emailed them, and she showed in her personalized outreach how she understood the industry, the dilemma the person was in that they needed to staff up, and how her skill set applied to their particular situation. And that's how she landed multiple job interviews at a time when really no one visibly was hiring. So you need to be sort of smarter and more strategic rather than saying, gee, every person who, has this in their title, I should pitch them and I'll send out 50 pitches today and pat myself on the back because I did that. Research, customize, personalize. That's what will get you through and help you cut through the networking noise in a world where everybody else is patting themselves on the back for sending volumes of emails that end up in our spam or our junk mail.
Well, you said a very powerful thing. We have all experienced rejection more times than any of us want to admit or own up to it. Today is our day to network that universal experience, rejection. Sorry, Charlie Day is a day to raise a glass, fist or finger to all the times we've been kicked to the curb, spent, and yet somehow survived it. Can you share with us that amazing strategy on how to best deal with rejection?
I had an amazing opportunity to speak with and interview Liza Donnelly. She is our cartoonist for The New Yorker. She has been contributing to The New Yorker and submitting, more importantly, to The New Yorker for probably 30 years or more. She deals with rejection on a weekly basis because she may submit 3-5 cartoons a week to the cartoon editor, and she may get one published a month. Maybe more, maybe less. The number is minuscule compared to the creative output. You need to understand your rejection, and it's not a rejection of you as a human, as a person. It's a rejection in terms of, all right, maybe you weren't the right fit. Maybe someone wasn't getting your message. Maybe there could have been something you could have crafted better, but it doesn't make you, an inadequate or bad person. So contextualize the rejection. Make sure you've got people you can, work through your rejection with, because it is frustrating and disappointing to get rejected. So have good friends who you can call up and say, well, it happened again. I got rejected and I'm disappointed. And they're there to hear you. And then guess what? Pick yourself up, move on, get on to the next thing, because wallowing in that rejection is not necessarily going to change the outcome. But I will also share with you and make sure you have for your post that episode of the podcast with Liza, because it is extraordinary. And she does an amazing job of sort of talking about how to work through rejection. And just so you know, scientists studying rejection, the same part of our brain is activated when we're rejected as if you received trauma to your organs. So that, when you get rejected and it feels like a punch in the gut, guess what? to your brain, it's the same thing. So you're not crazy. If you are feeling that physical pain, it is real. But, you know, have that network, have a community that you can work through that pain with.
Well, that reminds me another survey. There is another research that actually shows that for one no, we have to hear 8 positive messages to counterbalance that no and to believe in ourselves, be back to the scratch. But I would actually go back to a couple of weeks ago. Actually, it was 31st of March. We had an amazing lineup of speakers, and Michelle Jalanze was one of the speakers. She's an entrepreneur from Malta at the moment. She's a painter, so there is a common ground for a painter, a graphic how would you say, a drawer. And she actually said, I've got my blinkers on and I just keep going. So that's another strategy for you, ladies and gentlemen. So I would like to segue back to your book, Building Your Dream Network, Forging Powerful Relationships in a Hyper-Connected World. It has garnered great reviews, including Craig Newmark, founder of Craigslist, and the foreword is written by Tom Peters, one of the best-selling business authors of all time. How did you manage to make these connections?
Well, this is true. Like writing a book on networking, I couldn't reach out to people I don't know. I had the really amazing opportunity to be part of a hackathon with, it was like 100 sort of leaders in tech, and somehow I got on this, and it was a flight. It was a flight from San Francisco to London to hack the challenges, global challenges around technology. And that's how I happened to meet Craig Newmark. He was one of the esteemed guests on this flight, and we were on the same team hacking the challenge of how we get more women in technology. And Craig has a delightfully dry sense of humor, and I have a big laugh and love dry senses of humor. So we bonded like no one's business on that flight. So when I was thinking about people who I would reach out and ask to review my book, Craig came up. Now, Tom, because we're talking about part of it today, we're talking about how you network during a pandemic, which means how do we network within, and I'll do this, how do we network within these screens? And how do we do that? So Tom, interestingly, I started following Tom on Twitter when I jumped on Twitter way back in 2009. And I was really focused at that time on management and leadership issues, women on boards, good corporate governance, those kinds of things. And through hashtags and conversations on Twitter, I found Tom and started following him, knowing that he is a big thinker in the business world. And we would engage on Twitter. So when I say engage on Twitter, I think of Twitter like a big old cocktail party, or it's a big room with a whole lot of different cocktail parties. So how are you the good guest? When you get on Twitter, think to yourself, how can I be a good guest that someone wants to invite me into conversation or back to the party? And how do we do that? Think about when you were at a cocktail party and someone said something interesting. You might have done something like this. Or you might have said, oh, that's interesting. Or you might have said to somebody else, oh, you should join our conversation. There's some good stuff going on over here. How is any of those 3 actions any different than a like, a retweet, or a repost of somebody else's tweet with some commentary? It's the same thing in my mind. We need to contextualize it, because on Twitter, we can deal and relate and have conversations with real people. Novel, I know. So I started following Tom. He started following me. We had this back and forth. I made an announcement about my book. I get this direct message from Tom, and he says to me, I pre-ordered a copy of your book. I'm shocked, okay? But at this point, it was, like I said, I got on Twitter in 2009. This is now late in 2016. That's 7 years. That's 7 years of interaction that led to a deeper conversation than, some of the banter back and forth, but you can see the trust building up over the years. So then Tom said he had pre-ordered my book. I said, well, that's funny. We have the same publisher. I bet I could get them to send you a copy. That led to emails and more conversation. He was one of the first people I emailed, 8 or 9 months after the hardcover came out to say to him, the book's now going to paperback. And that's when he asked me who was writing the foreword, and he raised his hand and said he would like to write the foreword to it. So you think about it, that's like 7, 8, 9 years of kind of hanging out together, so to speak, in the digital format and digital platforms. We have met once in person. It was an absolutely seamless from on Twitter to off Twitter conversation. We just didn't have to use hashtags. We could use more than 280 characters. We could use saltier language than we use online. We didn't have to worry about anyone else barging into the conversation. So it was magical and extraordinary. And now, 11, 12 years later, I can say I have a mentor, a friend, and a champion in Tom Peters. And I really encourage people to think about using social media this way, because before social media, before digital platforms, where would have I had the chance to meet someone like Tom and have him become a friend and a mentor and a champion of mine? Kind of hard. I wasn't traveling in the same circles. I would have had to chase him at a book signing like some sort of, crazy person that security would have dragged out of the room. But instead, we built up trust over all these years, and that's been valuable for me, and I'd like to think valuable for him. So, there's how those two things came about, and hopefully that provides some networking insights, some patience, and some kindness and empathy. I'm going to use your word from the start of this conversation, empathy.
Yes, is my mojo. So I can't stop but remember the time that I was preparing myself for first ever web summit, and I was overwhelmed with numbers, and they actually organized a nifty, very interesting topic to talk about and to just brief us before we came. I was invited as one of Women in Technology in 2014, and they talked about how to make introductions. And it was amazing because they talked not only about the fact that you have to build trust, as you said, but also think how you can stand out from all the crowd. Think about how you can pitch something in that 30-second span rather than talk about, oh my God, what are you passionate about? Oh, I'm passionate about sports. I'm passionate about energy saving. I'm passionate about. So it's all about what is the most important thing that you do that you want to carry around or make the person you're speaking to resonate with you. And hallelujah, sister, well done with that forward. I really admire that. So another amazing, yeah.
Can we pick up on something you said? Because so many people use like a 30-second elevator pitch when they meet someone. And for me, that is sort of like a waterfall of a whole bunch of words at me that I stand back afterwards and think, okay, I've just had a lot of stuff tossed at me, and this is, it almost feels like, the expression, throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping something sticks. What I recommend to people is when you're crafting that 30-second sort of introduction or elevator pitch, think about 6, 7, 8 words that you start the conversation with, and then insert a pause. And you insert a pause so you give the other person a chance to lean in to learn what you do, and you turn a pitch into a conversation. Because conversations lead to opportunities. For me, pitches lead to, oh, that's interesting, right? It just doesn't lead to anything for me in most cases. But a conversation leads to inquiry and leads to depth and leads to relationships. So let me give you an example. One of my favorite sort of 6-word opener is my friend Terry Kawaja, who is the founder of Luma Partners. When someone says to him, "What do you do, Terry?" he says, "I make startup founders rich." And then he pauses. And then people say, "Well, how do you do that?" "I'm an investment banker. I invest, this is what I blah, blah, blah." And he goes into the conversation versus if he said, "I'm an investment banker and I co-founded Luma Partners and blah, 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 blah," for 30 seconds. It's like, yeah, whatever, Terry. Instead, he's got this hook with a big old pause where, let me give you another example. It was an intellectual property attorney who had that, kind of traditional, "I'm a partner in a big firm," kind of elevator pitch. And I said to her, "What do you do?" She says, "I open new markets in the pharmaceutical industry." I said, "Well, how do you do that?" She says, "I'm an intellectual property attorney and I attack weak patents held by big pharma that prevent generic drugs from getting on the market." And I looked at her and I said, "Hold on. What are you talking about?" Now we had a dialogue as opposed to just a bunch of words thrown at me that I would have nodded and said, "Oh, that sounds interesting." So think about a few words, a pause so that somebody else can get a word in edgewise and you can have a conversation.
Fantastic. 6 to 8 words to manage the conversation is Kelly's strategy. I would like to ask you because through the network, powerful network on Facebook, I was looking for speakers and you were recommended to me by Pat, and I hope she's in today. I'm not sure. We've got a couple of comments and lots of love. Thank you for all this appreciation from our community. I just wanted to ask you, we are talking about amazing women, and Marianne is talking, "Hello, Kelly. I am so grateful to learn more from you. By the way, love your articles and podcasts. I think we can also use your strategies, not just in our professional life, but also our personal life, like finding love." There you go. Marianne, it's a very lovely message from you. I see also we have in love and in pain with us tonight. It's lovely to see you. Erms is also, yes, another great topic and awesome guest. Thank you so much, in love and in pain. Erms is asking, "Hi Kelly, good evening. My question is, how can we protect ourselves from the dangers of networking? Can you share any tips?"
I would love a little more specifics on the dangers you're thinking about. Are you thinking about dangers online in terms of trolls and spammers and all the rest of it? Are you thinking the dangers where you've made a networking faux pas and you want to course correct? Oh, and I see that there might be a comment that identity theft. Yes, there is a good one. So this may be also stealing ideas beyond your personal identity. This is where understanding that these are challenges, because I think some people don't understand. I think it's thinking proactively and carefully on what it is that you share and why you share information. Before technology, there was things that, frankly, in my life, I would like to say, it's nobody's business. So I'm not posting it online. And there was people I didn't share it with when we would, gather together in person. So, sometimes you got to decide who and what you want to share. think about the email address and your privacy settings that way. Think about putting, the copyright symbol and having that first use in terms of where you're sharing things. Make sure that you've got the right kind of, I want to say, spam and other protections in terms of strength of password on your website, and understand the vulnerabilities of platforms that you're on that may lead to someone appropriating your ideas and all the rest of it. I know in the past when I have seen friends, it was particularly one I'm thinking of that was on Instagram, she notified her network and said, someone is impersonating me. Could everyone go and do this? And so in this meaning, could we go and report it to Instagram to helpfully have it course corrected? And I think it's important to call upon your network to help you out when these things do happen. So hopefully those are some good ideas and that will help you out.
These are fantastic ideas. I would like to also recommend the fact that through my network, I was able to invite to Malta Business Network esteemed speaker, a specialist in security, cybersecurity. So you may want to tune in on the 27th of May at 5 p.m. CET. We are going to have Dr. Jackie Taylor, cybersecurity expert, United Nations advisor. She's an awesome role model, and she appeared on Women on IT just last year. So thinking about the theft or cyber security issue, or actually thinking about the sexual harassment, I can't stop but segue into the Brotopia, Emily Chang's book, the Brotopia Breaking Up the Boys Club, where she talked with the founder of Twitter, and she talked about the fact that maybe if they had more women on board, maybe they would think about the sexual harassment threat before they started the Twitter. So I'm thinking about also another thing that she pictures in her bro culture, where men hold all the cards and make all the rules, vastly outnumber women, face toxic workplaces, rife with discrimination and sexual harassment, where investors take meetings in hot tubs and network at sex parties. Or, as Chang noted, a partner of the venture capital firm Sequoia famously said, they won't lower their standards just to hire women. What was it for you to enter the boys club and not only successfully network, but be a successful angel investor?
Well, by the time I was navigating it, I was, I wasn't fully into my gray hair, but I was well on the road. So I hadn't had to navigate some of it when I was younger. I also wasn't navigating it seeking anyone's money, which I think makes a difference in terms of your vulnerability. Also having the good fortune of initially meeting people in the startup community who are champions of women and who have a zero tolerance for people who, are engaging in all the other behavior that gives technology such an extraordinarily bad reputation. So I think there was a lot of that involved. I should, give a shout out to Ed Zimmerman, Lowenstein Sandler in New York. I got to give a massive, massive shout out again to Terry Kawaja at Luma Partners, and I have to give a biggest shout out to Chris Freilich and Rob Hayes at First Round, because those were some of the first men in tech who I met. And these are people who, they don't engage in that behavior. They don't surround themselves with that behavior. And so for me, it was, a much, when I would say dealing with men in the profession. Now, that's not to say that I didn't see it. It didn't, if I didn't hear the comments, it's not like things weren't presented to me, but I was like, I got another community who is very powerful, and I can rely on them. So you who are engaging in this other behavior, you can talk to my hand, because you might be coming to me asking me to write a check, or you might be coming to me to ask for my network, and it ain't coming to you if you're behaving in that kind of way. So I think that's part of the reason when some of my experiences have been different than if I had started in technology, right out of school. The other thing to see is, my first career as a lawyer, and then dealing with the investment world in terms of investment bankers and Wall Street and bankers in that world, the corporate world, I've pretty much seen it all at the point where I got involved in technology. I tell a story about going to court in Toronto in a bankruptcy matter, and there was 200 lawyers in court. There was 2 women, me and a woman who was a senior partner at another law firm. So I've seen it, I've experienced it. Frankly, in technology at this point, it bores me that the behavior continues.
Totally. And I have to say that your quote resonates with the values Women on IT community believes in. In order for women-led and women-owned companies to receive greater funding, gender diverse investors are required. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for participating in our comments and giving us love and certificate of appreciation, whatever you call it. Pat, Louise, lovely to see you. This is the girl that got us together. So we've got a question, Pat, lovely to see you. In love and in pain. Hi, Kelly. What advice can you give to someone who is afraid or shy to start a conversation to others and start building a network?
First of all, you have a network already. Let's repeat what I said earlier on this conversation. Your network has a network, so start your networking there. There's kind of number one. Secondly, ditch the idea that a personality type is better at networking. That keeps networking in that sort of old paradigm that you have to go rushing around and talking to strangers and all that, which sometimes you need to talk to new people that you don't know very well. But networking is not just, oh my God, I have to go and talk to strangers. Start with who you already know. Do not continue the fallacy that a certain personality type is a good networker, because that again limits networking to a specific behavior. The third thing I'm going to say, because I got to say it and plug my book, read my book, swear to God, or go over to my website, plug in the word introvert, because you will find endless posts on networking for introverts, people who are shy. Because what I discovered in writing my book, which is all case study driven, that the vast majority, and when I say vast majority, I'm talking 70, 80% of the people I interviewed in my book are introverts. People who are more deliberate, considerate, focused, attentive to what is going on in somebody else's life, curious, listening. Those people in my mind in our busy, distracted 24/7 world, they are better network builders. And what you want to be is a strong network builder, because you want a strong network around you. Don't worry about being the life of the party. Not everyone's jam, and doesn't need to be everyone's jam. Be the person who builds that strong network, and you do that by listening, observing, being attentive, being consistent, showing up for your network every single day.
Fantastic. Pat, Louise, so glad you were able to have Kelly on. I'm glad as well. Well, we are all glad. We've got so many comments coming in. I'm just like feeling the network, the buzz of the networking and building a successful community. And this is what we are doing right now. Thank you so much. In love and in pain. We've got less than 15 minutes left. We better get moving. So the question I would like to ask you, is there a different approach for women who just came back from maternity leave? Because we talked about how to start, where introverts have it better. I mean, we are still in the bias world where people are thinking, well, she's just going to talk about diapers, right?
Well, and also, sometimes that's unfortunately when we talked about earlier about how you position and present yourself. Sometimes that's unfortunately what we do. And I would say this, men or women, what we talk about, rather than pivoting the conversation to what we want to be known for, we kind of pigeonhole ourselves that way. I also think this is where it is really critical for women to have mentors and advisors and champions who ask the hard questions that sometimes we're not allowed to ask. There was a really interesting little profile that appeared in the New York Times of a woman who'd had a really fabulous, successful career. And at one point early in her career, shortly after she'd had a baby, there was some talk about expanding operations into India, and everyone was like, well, she won't want to do it. She's just had a baby. And, and this woman's family, she was of Indian descent, and, someone who was very ambitious in her career, and knowing that to really grow her career, she would need an overseas operational role so that she could really move up the corporate ladder. There was a smart man in the decision-making who thought, we're all making these assumptions. I'm going to ask her. And that's what he did. And she was like, heck yeah, give me that assignment. I've got this is how my life's figured out. I'm not rushing home to change nappies and do all that kind of stuff. This is coming back and having a baby was important. Growing a family is important, but my career is vitally important. And I know I need this assignment. And so this guy then went back to the decision makers and said, we had it all wrong. So this is where women need to look and say, right, how do I and who do I need to have in my corner so that if people are in a room talking about me and making incorrect assumptions, this person will course correct it.
Fantastic. Well, amen to that, sister. So we've got to talk about your survey, because I just signed up to it, because the first time we had a conversation, I think it was almost a month ago when we were prepping ourselves, you told me about this amazing new project you are building. So what is the aim of your survey? And I highly encourage you, whoever is watching, whether on live or after the live, please sign up to this, because you will be amazed.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for asking the women in your community to take part in my Success Networks survey. So what I have realized, and this a little bit I talk about in the book, and I'm often asked about the differences between men's and women, and how they network. What is different and critically important for women who are looking to succeed is that successful women have an entirely different network structure and how they leverage their network than anybody else. And I look at this as, I don't know, if you wanted to make a cake, would you just go into your kitchen and grab any ingredients, throw them in a pan, and hope you get a cake? No, you'd follow a recipe to different degrees of success, but you would follow a recipe. So there is actually a recipe, and this is social science research. There's a recipe appearing for how women build the networks that give them the foundation for career success. And as part of the research I'm doing, and I'm just going to do this. I have endless files of social science research. This survey is part of some original research. And what I'm finding, thank you for signing up. What I'm finding, the women who are participating already, it's an anonymous multi-week survey. What I'm finding is women are already reaching out to me going, oh my God, I'm thinking differently about, this has happened. I'm doing this differently now, and this is what's happening. So they're supposed to keep it anonymous, but they're reaching out to me. So please participate so that we have as many women as possible sharing an experience and experiencing, contributing to this body of research on what are the factors that lead to success for women, and networks and networking and how they're leveraging that network is highly critical.
Well, I just wanted to show the start of that survey because it's not only interesting to have the feedback, but also look at that. Are you interested? Yes. Oh, yeah. That's why I'm here. I love these answers. It's a fun way to do a survey. It's not this boring, longish survey that takes time and you're just dreaming of when is it going to finish? When is it going to finish? So I highly recommend. I love it already. And I'm looking forward to see what next week brings. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got less than 10 minutes. You've got your opportunity to ask a question. We've got a delay in through our social media streams, so you better start now. So, Kelly, I just wanted to ask you a critical question I always ask my esteemed guests. Can you please give us your favorite life lesson quote? And can you share how that was relevant to you in your life?
A friend and a mentor said to me when he had asked what I was doing or what I was up to, because people had known me at a certain point in my life to do 12 different things at the same time. And I said to him, I'm just focused on this. That's it. There's no plan B. And he looked at me and said, good. You should not have a plan B. Because if you're focused on plan B, you're not executing plan A. And I was like, whoa, because we always focus on what's your plan B. So I say to people, your plan B should be have a network, because you're executing on plan A and your network is going to support plan A. And when plan A may or doesn't pan out, you've got a network to turn to say, I got to work on my next plan A. So building your network is your plan B, execute relentlessly on your plan A. And that's my big life quote at this point.
I have to say my plan B is to stop my cat from running into the show. So we had a laptop problem. Now we have a cat problem. He just barged through the door. I hope it's not going to go hayway. We've got a question from Rombit. And since we are talking about social networks, is there a best social media for networking?
Depends on who you want to network with. Figure out where your audience is. So if there's certain people you want to talk to, there may be a platform that is better for you in terms of where you're investing your time. Secondly, there are platforms that I think having a solid presence on are critical, even if they are not your primary networking platform. And that's because they get great search engine optimization. So go and Google yourself and see what shows up. Chances are after your LinkedIn profile, after your website, after your corporate bio, if you're working at a company, your LinkedIn profile is going to come up. So having a solid, up-to-date and relevant LinkedIn profile, even if you're not actively engaging there, is kind of critical. And then figure out where your audience is in terms of the types of people you need to network and engage with, and that's where you should be networking. I do want to point out, and I saw this in terms of a comment, and it was a good reminder because I know she said it before, and this is at Miss Rogue on Twitter, Tara Hunt, who is a good friend of mine. And if you're building your business on somebody, like a third-party platform, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Medium, you name it, they can change the rules on you and you don't control anything about it. So I think there is an element of the need to have a presence and engage and find people, but you got to also have your home platform for people to come back to. So this is something else to keep that in mind.
I would also add the fact that whatever network you're comfortable with, whichever media you're most comfortable with, reaching out to your network or talking to people, that would be usually my choice, because not everything is for everyone. Like, who would want to be on TikTok? Are you on TikTok, Kelly?
At some point, when sometimes they'd say, hey, Kelly, you should. And I'm like, there's only so many hours in the day. I think the best networks are the ones where you invest your time. But you also need to look at, where are the people you want to connect with? And you may say, my product, my service is for this age demographic. And then you're like, well, that means I need to be on TikTok, or that means I need to spend more time on LinkedIn. Or you need to be aware of the opportunities that you may not be able to pursue because you choose not to do that. I also think it's worthwhile to look and say, am I networking with the same people all the time? And then you're just in an echo chamber. And that, as I've talked about earlier in our conversation, that can be dangerous as well.
Fantastic. Well, it's time for our viewers' favorite question now, Kelly. Imagine the pandemic is over and you can invite to breakfast any person in the world. Who would you love to have private breakfast with and why? And which place would you choose?
I thought I was going to struggle with this question, but it's super easy. There's two people I would like to have breakfast with. They are my youngest godchildren. And it is easy where it would be, because it would also mean that the world had truly opened up in terms of our ability to move around. They live in Australia. So on a beach in Perth, Australia, is where this godmother would like to be having breakfast with anyone in the world, because it would be my two godchildren, my two youngest godchildren.
Fantastic. And they're going to teach you a lesson how to be on TikTok.
No, they're too young for that, thank God.
TikTok will be over by the time they reach their teens, right?
That's right. I'll be lying on the beach talking to their mother, and the two of them will be in the water, and it'll be bliss. But it just means, guess what? Our world has opened up and moving around again. And I'm like, yeah.
Fantastic.
That would be nice. It would be a dream.
Well, it's also a very humble dream, I would say, because it seemed just 2 years ago it was just so down to earth, just going to Australia, or you just pick a ticket you want. And I know that you've got a couple of points accumulated on your loyalty card, so you would just use these and go wherever you want, right?
Right. And I think the lessons that we've learned really in this past 12, 15, 18 months of what's important to us. Because I can imagine if you and I had this conversation at a different point in time, I could, I want to be in Paris having breakfast with, and maybe there's some fancy name or something like that. I mean, we can all imagine, breakfast with anyone, who would it be? And really, this time apart has revealed what is critically important to all of us. And I hope that is a lesson that we take forward as we are able to move more freely in the world.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kelly. I am speechless right now. I don't know what to add to this conversation apart from a couple of final remarks, because we learned so much from you, Kelly. We have learned about the fact that building networks is the foundation of how to build a network to build successful career is focus on the trust issue. You need to build that trust, and your bond is your trust would be the mantra here. We need to stop thinking about instant gratification and focus on what is there that we can give to other people, rather than thinking about what I can take. Have a real conversation, connect with people before you approach them with your sales pitch. Figure out what somebody else's problem is. Building your plan B should be beneficial to your network. And I can only add that, as always, during our Positivity Hack Delivered, community and network is at the heart of our organization. And I'm so pleased to welcome all of you: Rombit, Marianne Madera, In Love and in Pain, Elms Maga, Pat Lewis. It's been amazing tremendous experience, and very humble too, Kelly, to have such a great role model appear on our StreamYard and have you share the knowledge and how you build your successful network. Kelly, what's the next plan? What is the big project you're working on? You showed us your notebook.
Yes, I would turn this research around the networks women need for career success. That is going to be book number 2. And yeah, that's my big focus right now. So
yeah,
I'm going to say one thing at a time.
Absolutely. I would be happy to be your little bunny to test me, so you go for it. And let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on it. Inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to this hustle because empathy is my modus operandi. And empathy is critical when you are building the success network with Kelly tonight, tomorrow, all the time. Thank you very much, Kelly. Pleasure to see you. Let's hug the future, women on it.
Thank you. It's been a joy.